Greetings once again, Ghoul Lunatics. We're going to do something a little different today. Different meaning that I'm going to sit on the floor because the books I'm going to talk about weigh about 1,000,000 pounds and it's going to be a lot easier just to shift them from the shelf over to my lap this way. So I want to talk about the IDW EC Artists Editions. And those of you that have these books know how absolutely beautiful they are. So I'm going to talk a little about the different variants and the different editions that have come out. And unlike my normal collecting modus operandi, I don't have everything. I had to kind of pick and choose which edition I would get because they're not cheap books. So let's start with the first one that came out in 2011. And this is Wallywood's EC Stories, the Artist Edition. This is the first printing. And there was also a second printing that had the cover art from Weird Science number 20 on it. This is, of course, Incredible Science Fiction number 33, the last ever EC comic. There was also a WonderCon variant that had a big blow-up of the last panel of Wood's My World. So 3 versions of this artist edition. But you can see how big this book is. It's bigger than you like. It's almost bigger than me. And for those of you who haven't seen these, what they do is reproduce original art at full size. Shot from the original art, these are actually very large scans. They are printed at the size of the original artwork on paper that closely mimics the original EC art boards. And so as you can see, they're absolutely beautiful. And while these could have been done in black and white, they're not. They're all scanned in color, so you can see every nuance of the artwork. Blue pencil lines, red markings, little notations. Sometimes there's sketches in the margins. And this is as close as you could really ever get to looking at the original art. And having been lucky enough to view a lot of original EC art, I can tell you that this is as close as most of us are ever going to get to seeing what the original art might look like. And it's just a lot of fun to go over all the details and really just see every little nuance of the artist's work. So this was the first one in 2011, Wallywood's EC Stories. And this was followed in 2012 by the Mad Artists Edition. There were also a couple versions of this. This is the Harvey Kurtzman cover, and this is the art from Mad number 6. There was also a Basil Wolverton variant with the ugly girl or pretty girl, depending on what your tastes are, from the cover of Mad number 11. And this one also features a lot of Harvey Kurtzman's cover prelims in addition to the full-size cover art. So that's also pretty cool. Let me see if I can find a couple examples. There you go. Also at full size, next to the original art for the cover, are some of Harvey Kurtzman's prelims. And this is just a treasure trove of early Mad art. There's even more Wood stuff in here, and there's also a lot of crazy Will Elder and his chicken fat. Mad was followed in 2013, which was actually a busy year for these things. So, Jack Davis's EC Stories. This is a variant, and this has the cover for Tales from the Crypt number 33, and the regular edition has the werewolf cover from Tales from the Crypt number 46, and this is the signed edition. So, right here we've got number 154 out of 250 signed editions. Jack Davis signed this, and when I got it out of the shrink wrap, I was happy to see that a bug had been squished. And I kind of figured Jack Davis must have squished this bug in the book when he signed it, because that little bug's remains were there when I opened this book out of the shrink wrap. So also in 2013, this was a special exclusive for San Diego Comic-Con that year, 2013. Unfortunately, it wasn't there. The boat got lost or something, but this is an EC Covers portfolio, and it's got 8 covers reproduced at full size, and they're printed single-sided, suitable for framing. And the nice thing with these is that as close as they are to looking like original art, they do have printing on the back that says, "This is not original art." But you can still frame them up and put them in your EC room and they look like the real thing. Or you can do what I do and keep them in the portfolio because you are an EC hoarder. Also in 2013 was the Best of EC Comics. And the regular edition has the cover for Weird Science Fantasy number 29, which is legendarily Frank Frazetta's only solo cover for EC. And that was also included in the covers portfolio, so there it is. So imagine, if you will, the Best of EC Artists Edition with this cover, but then there was also a signed edition. And this one is signed by Al Feldstein. And my copy is number 97 out of 250, signed by Al Feldstein there. So there you have the variant cover with Feldstein's art from Weird Fantasy number 15, and it's also signed by Al. 2015, and we got the Best of EC Comics Volume 2, and this is the regular edition with the Al Williamson and Frank Frazetta cover from Weird Science Fantasy number 21. There's also a version that has the cover of, I think it's Two-Fisted Tales number 25 with Harvey Kurtzman art. And let's take a look at that, because I think that was also in the cover portfolio. And indeed it was one of the great Harvey Kurtzman covers of all time. One of those covers that you don't even need to know the story for the cover to tell a story. And it's kind of one of his heartbreaking, cynical views of what war was. That was the variant cover for the Best of EC Comics Volume 2. And Volume 1 and Volume 2 are nice because you get a really broad sampling of art by artists that weren't necessarily in the other editions. So there have been some full volumes of art by specific artists, and then the best ofs give you a lot of art just by a lot of the different EC artists. So I know people would love an artist edition just of Al Williamson, but they're limited to the stories that they can get full stories of to scan. People have been clamoring for a Johnny Craig, and at one point the editor of these volumes, Scott Dunbier, said, "Hey, get me enough Johnny Craig stories and I'd be happy to do it." So they are limited to what they can get, but luckily what they can get are some of the greatest stories in EC's canon. Things like Master Race and Johnny Craig's Touch and Go. Some of the covers like the Uncensored Vault of Horror number 32 and Crime Suspense Stories number 22. They're all in here. This is one that was announced early on and it felt like we were waiting forever for it. And if you're a fan of Ghastly, as I truly am, this was well worth the wait. 2016, early on, we got Graham Ingels EC Stories. And as far as I know, there was no variant edition of this. It was just this one with this beautiful walking corpse cover from Haunt of Fear number 17. But seeing Ingels' art at this size up close is really, it's pretty astonishing. And just the line work and the sheer beauty of the grotesque ghastliness of his art. He really was, as Bill Gaines said, Mr. Horror. And Deck, I'm sure everyone wants you in the shot too. So that brings us to 2017, and at this time, the final volume in this series is Reed Crandall's EC Stories. And Reed didn't do a whole lot of covers for EC, so you've got this swashbuckling Piracy number 4 cover here, but actually most of the stories inside tend to be suspense stories and horror stories. Reed did very little science fiction for EC, so you've got some pretty amazing and pretty gruesome stuff, because Reed joined about halfway through the new trend, and he did some of the more gruesome horror stories for EC, but he also did some just amazing suspense stories for Crime Suspense Stories, Shock Suspense Stories. Here you've got a pretty interesting, instead of using a stat of the Vault Keeper, Reed drew that Vault Keeper himself. So some fantastic stuff in here. This is another one that was definitely highly anticipated, because Reed is just one of the master illustrators of comic book history, and this is a beautiful volume here. And so 2017, it's been a while since we got a new volume in the series, and what we're waiting for now is the EC Covers Artists Edition. And it's taken a while because they have sourced many covers that didn't appear in any of these volumes. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we haven't seen before, and I can't wait for it to come out. It's been slightly delayed, but it's going to be well worth the wait, I predict. So there you have the IDW EC Artists Editions. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.